A common saying goes that a man works from morning until night, but a woman's work never truly ends. That idea fits the life of Audrey Meadows in many unexpected ways. Audrey Meadows passed away in 1996, and for many years her story seemed complete. She had no known children, and her will clearly stated that her estate should be divided among family members and charities. Everything appeared settled and final. Then, in March 2025, something happened that shocked everyone connected to her life and legacy. A person walked into a law office in Los Angeles carrying a simple manila envelope. Inside were documents that could change how people remember Audrey Meadows forever. The envelope contained a DNA test and a birth certificate dated 1959. The name on that certificate stunned the lawyers and the family. The person claimed to be Audrey Meadows' secret child, hidden from the world for 66 years. Along with the DNA test, there were medical records, adoption papers, and other documents that seemed to support the claim. The Meadows family immediately pushed back, saying it could not be true. But as experts reviewed the evidence, it became harder and harder to ignore. If proven real, this discovery would rewrite a piece of television history and force people to look at Audrey's life in a very different way. To understand how such a secret could exist, it helps to go back to the very beginning of Audrey's life. Audrey Carter was born on February 8, 1922, in Wuchang, China. At that time, China felt very far from the Western world, both physically and culturally. Her parents were Episcopal missionaries who lived and worked in areas where there were very few other foreigners. Because of this, Audrey and her siblings grew up in near isolation from Western culture. For the first 5 years of her life, Audrey spoke only Chinese. English was not part of her daily world. The children ate simple local food and played with local children, using whatever toys were available. They had no idea what American toys looked like. Audrey later said that she did not even know what ice cream was until she arrived in the United States at the age of 5. Life was quiet, strict, and disciplined. Her parents believed in structure, self-control, and emotional restraint. All 4 Carter children grew up carrying the weight of that early isolation. In 1927, everything changed very suddenly. China was becoming dangerous for missionaries. Anti-foreign anger was rising, and threats were spreading quickly. Audrey's parents realized they could not stay. They packed up their family with almost no warning and fled the country. The move was rushed and frightening, though the children were mostly shielded from the details. When they arrived in Providence, Rhode Island, it felt like another planet. For the first time, Audrey heard English spoken everywhere. She saw everyday objects that amazed her. Doorbells seemed magical. Washing machines looked like inventions from the future. Even something as simple as an ice cream cone felt unreal. Audrey's father became the rector of St. John's Cathedral, and the children entered New England schools. The girls attended Lincoln School, and the boys went to Moses Brown School. Although they were finally safe, life was not easy. The Great Depression was beginning, and money was tight. Audrey's father opened a soup kitchen at the cathedral because he could not ignore the hunger he saw around him. At home, her parents tried to hide their worries. They believed children should feel secure, even if the adults were struggling. This created a culture of silence in the Carter household. Personal fears, pain, and past trauma were never openly discussed. The danger they had faced in China, including the secret nighttime evacuation from Wuchang, was never talked about. Audrey, the youngest child, learned very early to keep her feelings to herself. She tried not to burden anyone with her emotions. Even when she was injured as a small child after falling through a skylight, she tried to hide her scars. She often felt different from the children around her, and that feeling stayed with her throughout her life. The Carter children grew up responsible, loyal, and quiet because that was how their parents had survived hardship. When Audrey attended the Bington School for Girls between 1937 and 1940, she once again felt out of place. The school focused heavily on academics and the arts, and while Audrey did well, she stood out. She especially thrived in choir. Her voice was strong and clear, and people noticed it right away. Singing gave her confidence in a way nothing else did. However, her classmates teased her for her accent and for talking about her childhood in China. They called her cruel names and laughed at the food and customs she remembered. Audrey worked hard every day to soften her accent so she would not be mocked. Music became her safe place. It was something she could control, something that did not judge her. By the time she finished school, her voice had become both her protection and her strength, even though the pain of being teased followed her into adulthood. By 1940, when she was just 18 years old, Audrey wanted something her parents never expected. She wanted to act. She wanted to be on stage. Her parents hoped she would choose a safe, conservative life or attend college. Instead, Audrey told them she was going to visit her sister Jane in New York City. In truth, she planned to stay. She auditioned for Broadway roles and moved into the rehearsal club, a residence filled with young women chasing dreams just like hers. Life there was difficult. She worked small jobs, counted every dollar, and faced rejection after rejection. Still, she refused to give up. This decision was the boldest move of her life, and although it eventually led her to fame, it did not happen quickly or easily. Even before running away to New York, Audrey had already experienced the thrill of performing. In 1938, at just 16 years old, she sang as a coloratura soprano at Carnegie Hall during a youth recital. Tickets cost only $1, and the hall seated just 120 people, but to Audrey it felt enormous. She sang Puxini arias with a voice that critics later described as clear and powerful. She never told her father about this performance because she feared his disapproval. She later called it her secret beginning. That moment planted a seed in her heart, one she quietly carried until she was ready to chase her dream fully. From 1940 to 1942, Audrey worked in summer stock theaters across New England. In 1941, she joined the musical Roberta at the Providence Opera House, earning $40 a week. At first, she was part of the chorus, blending into the background. But she began adding small improvisations during performances. The director noticed her natural talent and promoted her. Soon she was earning $75 a week and singing solo parts during curtain calls. These experiences taught her lessons she could never learn in rehearsal rooms alone. She learned timing, rhythm, and how to read an audience. In 1943, Audrey toured with the Detroit Civic Light Opera in Anything Goes and earned $150 a week, which was very good money for someone her age. But life backstage was not glamorous. She faced uncomfortable attention and inappropriate comments from male colleagues. The experience frightened her, but it also made her stronger. She realized she wanted more control over her career and her environment. Slowly, she began shifting her focus from singing to acting. Audiences and critics started praising her comedic timing and natural charm. This change in direction would shape the rest of her career. The year 1944 brought a major turning point. Audrey understudied the lead role in the musical Good News in Chicago. Just 1 week before opening night, everything fell apart. The lead actress became seriously ill, the rehearsals were messy, and the director struggled to keep the production together. Audrey stepped in with almost no preparation. When lines were forgotten and the audience grew restless, she relied on her instincts. She added quick jokes and spontaneous moments that made people laugh. By the end of the night, the audience was cheering, and she received a standing ovation. Critics called her the surprise star of the show. That night, Audrey realized something important. She could make people laugh, and it came naturally to her. In 1945, she starred in Noette in Louisville. During one performance, the stage lights failed, leaving the cast nearly invisible. Instead of panicking, Audrey adjusted. She used her voice, timing, and reactions to guide the audience through the scene. Critics praised her for carrying the show during a disaster. She never forgot that night because it taught her that true performance comes from the performer, not from lights or props. By 1948, Audrey returned to New York permanently. She moved back into the rehearsal club, sharing cramped space with 20 women and surviving on just $10 a week. She auditioned constantly. Many casting directors rejected her, saying her looks were too unusual. Still, she refused to quit. She pushed through hunger, exhaustion, and doubt, slowly building confidence. Her big break finally came in 1951 with the Broadway musical Top Banana. Rehearsals were brutal, lasting 12 hours a day for 6 months. The show became a hit, running for 350 performances at the Winter Garden Theatre. Audrey stood out and caught the attention of powerful producers. She chose the stage name Audrey Meadows, inspired by a meadow from her childhood in Rhode Island. She was no longer the quiet girl who felt out of place. She was becoming a star. One night during Top Banana, Audrey twisted her ankle badly on stage. The pain was intense, but she refused to stop. She finished the performance while limping, determined not to disappoint the audience. Phil Silvers, the star of the show, admired her strength and later helped her by recommending her to agents. That moment symbolized who Audrey Meadows truly was. She endured pain, hid fear, and kept going. Now, decades after her death, the possibility of a hidden child suggests that she may have also carried secrets no one ever imagined. This moment slowly turned into a small legend in Broadway circles and made people understand just how strong and determined Audrey really was. It showed that she would keep going no matter how much pain she was in, and that kind of toughness earned her deep respect in the theatre world. Between 1951 and 1953, her career took another important step forward when she joined the Bob and Ray Show on NBC. She was the only woman in the cast, which already set her apart. On the show, she voiced more than 50 different characters. Each voice had its own personality, rhythm, and tone. She improvised constantly, experimented with timing, and pushed herself to be better every day. This experience sharpened her comedy skills and taught her how to move quickly between emotions and characters. The show became a major stepping stone for her future in television, and listeners remembered her because she could transform herself so completely from one role to another. In 1953, Audrey accepted an understudy role in a Broadway revue. Jackie Gleason appeared as a guest during these performances, and that is when their paths crossed in a meaningful way. Audrey stood out immediately. Her quick responses, fearless improvisation, and natural confidence caught Gleason's attention. She was not intimidated by his presence or reputation. Instead, she matched his energy and held her ground. Gleason sensed something special in her and spoke highly of her to his team. That single recommendation opened the door to the role that would define her career, Alice Craden on The Honeymooners. It happened because Audrey showed the strength, sharpness, and spark she had carried with her since childhood. Interestingly, Jackie Gleason had first seen a photograph of Audrey Meadows back in 1951. There was something about her face that made him pause. She looked calm, steady, and firm, and he felt she could be Alice even before hearing her speak. Producers rushed to find her, unaware that she was still mostly unknown in television. She had worked on Broadway and radio, but sitcoms were new territory for her. When she finally came in, Gleason rejected her at first. He felt she looked too glamorous for the role of Alice. The producers did not give up. They sent him new photographs where Audrey looked plain and serious, almost as if Alice had stepped straight out of a modest Brooklyn apartment. This time, Gleason changed his mind. By 1954, Audrey came in for a proper audition. She wore a simple house dress and delivered a sharp monologue in a strong Brooklyn tone, mocking an imaginary husband with dry humor. Her edge felt real, not forced. Her timing was perfect, and her reactions felt honest. She beat out more than 300 actresses, even though she had very little television experience. It was her personality, confidence, and natural ability that carried her through. At the age of 32, Audrey showed another kind of strength that few actresses dared to show at the time. When she joined the Honeymooners, Audrey negotiated a contract that surprised everyone. In the 1950s, actresses were not expected to ask for much, especially not long-term financial security. Audrey asked for residuals, meaning she wanted a percentage of every rerun. Her brother Edward, who was a lawyer, helped her include this clause. She was the only cast member who requested it. When the famous 39 episodes began airing again and again over the years, Audrey was the only one who received payment. Over time, those reruns earned her millions of dollars. Art Carney and Joyce Randolph did not receive anything similar because their contracts did not include residuals. Audrey became one of the highest-paid sitcom actresses of her time simply because she was brave enough to ask for something most people did not yet understand. Her first episode aired in October and marked the beginning of the Honeymooners as a half-hour television show. One line changed everything and became part of American culture almost overnight. "To the moon, Ralph." That catchphrase spread everywhere and helped push the show's popularity even higher. The show aired at the same time as I Love Lucy and, on some nights, even beat it in ratings. Behind the scenes, Audrey worked through exhausting rehearsals and Jackie Glissan's demanding style. Scenes were sometimes rehearsed 20 times or more. Because the show was performed live, mistakes could not be fixed or edited out. Everything went out exactly as it happened. Audrey relied on her calm, deadpan expression to carry her through the pressure. Fans became deeply attached to Alice Craden. Many viewers felt sorry for her character and wanted her to have a better life than the one Ralph gave her. They sent Audrey hundreds of aprons, curtains, and small household items, hoping Alice could live more comfortably. During the 1955 to 1956 season, Audrey began changing about 15% of her lines. She added small reactions and improvised moments that made Alice feel more real and human. These changes helped build the chemistry and spark that audiences loved so much, but they also started to create tension behind the scenes. Jackie Glissan wanted every script followed exactly the way it was written. He believed comedy worked best when nothing was changed. Sometimes he demanded rewrites, and other times he asked for scenes to be done again. Even with his strict rules, Audrey's improvised lines stayed in the show. Over time, those small changes became part of what made the classic 39 episodes feel so natural and alive. Her timing and quiet reactions helped create the rhythm people still admire today. While the show continued to grow in popularity, the impact of her contract also grew. Audrey remained the only cast member who made money from reruns. The classic episodes aired for decades, and the payments kept coming even after she passed away in 1996. In 1988, a Washington Post article described her as very wealthy because of those checks. Her decision to ask for residuals set a new standard. Future television stars followed the path she created, and her foresight changed how contracts were written across the industry. In April 1955, tension on the set reached a breaking point. Audrey objected to a sexist line that Glissan insisted on keeping in the script. He became furious and raised his voice. The entire cast went silent. Audrey did not give in. Instead, she walked out of the studio and refused to return until the producers stepped in. They removed the line, and only then did she come back. That moment stayed with everyone who witnessed it. From then on, she was seen as the moral center of the set. She was the only person who could stand up to Glissan and succeed. Later, her co-stars said the tension that day felt heavy, like a storm hanging over the room, but it also showed how much respect she commanded. During the filming of the final episodes in 1955, the pressure took a toll on her body. Audrey smoked nearly 3 packs of cigarettes a day to cope with stress. One day, a heavy prop door slammed shut on her wrist and badly sprained it. She hid the injury and continued working through swelling and pain for weeks. The camera never caught a sign of her discomfort. This was the kind of sacrifice performers made in the early days of live television, and Audrey carried it with quiet strength. Fan attention reached an incredible level. At one point, she received around 5,000 letters every single week. Many fans wrote advice about how Alice should handle Ralph, and some even included instructions on how Alice could file for divorce. Audrey laughed about these letters in interviews and sometimes read the most dramatic ones out loud. Still, some of them unsettled her because fans often confused her real life with her character. Even so, the letters showed how deeply people connected with her performance. In 1956, a technical problem interrupted a live broadcast. The scene froze because something went wrong in the control room. Audrey was forced to improvise for 5 full minutes while the issue was fixed. She filled the time with quick jokes and natural reactions, keeping the audience engaged without missing a beat. Afterward, Glissan praised her and gave her a $500 bonus. In live television, 5 minutes felt like forever, and her ability to handle it impressed everyone on set. Away from the cameras, Audrey developed a close friendship with Art Carney. He trusted her enough to share concerns he did not talk about publicly, including Glissan's drinking, which often made work unpredictable. Together, they quietly tried small ways to help steady him and keep the show running smoothly. They never spoke about it publicly. Their teamwork helped hold things together during some of the most unstable moments of the show. By 1956, the show was watched by around 30 million viewers every week. Audrey became so beloved that her character evolved into a co-lead alongside Glisson. Some weeks, the show even beat I Love Lucy in ratings. Fans lined up outside the studio hours before tapings, bringing her homemade aprons and curtains. To them, Alice felt like a real person, someone they cared about deeply. Audrey carried that warmth with her, even during the most difficult scenes. When CBS cancelled the show after one season in 1956, most actors lost a major source of income. Audrey did not. Her contract guaranteed her $50,000 a year starting in 1960. At that time, this was more money from reruns than Jackie Glisson himself earned. Her deal was unheard of in an industry that rarely protected women, but it created a model that others would later follow. After the show ended, Audrey did not slow down. Between 1957 and 1958, she appeared on more than 20 television programs. Audiences were surprised when she delivered a powerful dramatic performance as a betrayed wife on Studio One. Critics praised her range and depth. She continued appearing on major shows like The Red Skelton Hour and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Her career stretched across decades, showing she was far more than one role. In 1959, she tried something new by co-producing a radio version of The Honeymooners. The project was exciting, but sponsors pressured her to read advertisements she did not believe in. Audrey refused and walked away midway through the season. It was a bold decision, especially for a woman at that time, but it reflected the same strength she had always shown. In 1960, she received nearly 10,000 letters from fans. Many were from women who said Alice inspired them to leave abusive relationships or demand better lives. Audrey read these letters privately and quietly donated to charities that supported women in similar situations. She did not seek attention for it, but those close to her knew how deeply it mattered. Audrey entered films in 1962 with The Touch of Mink, stepping into a new world alongside Cary Grant. The movie included a scene that caused a lot of gossip, but Audrey insisted on using a body double. Behind the scenes, she fought against costumes and scenes that made her character seem weak. She asked for changes and rewrote lines to give her character strength and balance. This kind of control was rare for actresses then, and it quietly pushed Hollywood forward. In 1964, she played a sharp and playful aunt in Rosie. She improvised and adjusted scenes, adding humor and depth. Her performance earned her a Golden Globe nomination. Behind the scenes, she worked long hours with little sleep, relying on discipline learned from Broadway. When the film succeeded, it felt like a hard-earned victory. In the 1970s, she stepped away from acting for a while, focusing on married life and travel. Then in 1970, she returned for a guest role on The Odd Couple. The episode became a hit, drawing around 25 million viewers. Her performance reminded everyone of her talent, and critics praised her energy and timing. By the 1980s, her voice became highly sought after for documentaries. She narrated more than 50 programs, bringing warmth and nostalgia to classic television stories. In 1985, she reunited with Jackie Glisson for a Honeymooners special. On camera, they laughed and shared memories. Off camera, Glisson apologized for his past behavior. Audrey later said it was an apology she never expected, and it brought peace to old wounds. Her personal life had its own changes. She married Randolph Rouse in 1956, but the marriage ended 2 years later due to his affairs. In 1961, she married Robert Six, the CEO of Continental Airlines. Their marriage lasted 25 years, until his death in 1986. Audrey traveled the world with him and handled his illness privately, keeping her pain out of the public eye. She dedicated herself to charity, quietly donating millions to children's programs, especially those connected to China. After Robert's death, she lived a simpler life. In 1995, she was diagnosed with lung cancer but chose not to pursue aggressive treatment. She passed away in 1996, just days before her 74th birthday. Audrey Meadows left behind a legacy of strength, generosity, and quiet courage. Her life was full of private struggles and personal victories, but her impact lives on through her work, her kindness, and the lives she touched.